For a long time now, I've been using Linux and a tiling window manager of some sort to jump between various tasks on my computer. And after years of playing around with different window managers such as i3, BSPWM, Awesome, which I am aware is a lot more than just a tiling window manager, and as of late Hyperland. But I always kept coming back to DWM because of its simplicity and the idea of using tags instead of workspaces. It just resonated more with me. And naturally, the workspace/tags way of managing windows is the only one my brain can fathom anymore. Every time I had to, for whatever reason, boot into Windows and jump between various tasks, it just felt super unintuitive reaching for the taskbar and then picking the correct window I wanted to go to and then clicking on it to finally land there. My brain just doesn't work like that anymore. Right now, I'm forced to use Windows for work, and some of the games that I play it just won't work on Linux. So I have no other option. Now I know Windows has virtual desktops, which is like a cheap knockoff of the workspaces, but it's a far cry from the proper rules-based workspaces we have in real window managers. I had the same problem with macOS, so I had to use this third-party window manager called Yabai. But it's become a bit of a hassle to set up these days because, especially after the new macOS update and the security policy stuff and just usual Apple bullshit. But the new workspace management, or whatever they're calling it, that ships with macOS these days, I think it's called Stage Manager, but I could be wrong, is actually good enough and functional. I can have fixed workspaces, and there's other settings. I might actually still be using Yabai, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's either Yabai or just the default macOS, like the new Stage Manager thing. But it works. It does not work, however, on Windows because the Windows virtual desktops thing, the main reason why it doesn't work is because the key bindings are just awful and there's no fixed rules for workspaces. They're kind of dynamic and I don't like that. And like it or not, for some of us, we still have to use Windows because it is still the operating system that most software developers primarily support and ship their apps to. And before we go any deeper, I want to let you know that I don't care much about the tiling aspect of window managers as much as the workspace side of things. That's honestly the only thing I look for in a good window manager. I almost exclusively use my DWM in the monocle mode, which puts all windows in full screen all the time. I recently found out about this project called DWM with 32, which is like a surprisingly good port of DWM on Windows. And it's a single executable file, no libraries or anything like that. You know, very tiny, very simple, all things suckless. And you can just download it, double click the launch, and it kind of just works, which I understand is surprising these days. But it's functional. Of course, it's got some bugs, especially with the tiling thing, but like I said before, I only care about the workspace side of things, and that's functional, to say the least. And yeah, it just works for me. Having DWM or something like it on Windows solves 90% of my problems with Windows, at least from a user experience standpoint. But we could take it a bit further because it wouldn't be the authentic tiling window manager experience without like a command launcher or something like that. So I want to tell you about PowerToys, which is more than just a search/command launcher thing, because Windows search is just horrible. And you can use PowerToys instead, which comes with a bunch of other customization options, which is focused primarily on the efficiency side of things. It's pretty good. You can do key remaps, and then you can even remap shortcuts. It's pretty cool. I think you should check it out. And once we have the search bar or the command launcher, we pretty much have the UI covered. Now, the only missing piece is PowerShell, or like the shell, because PowerShell is awful. So, I mean, of course, everyone knows about WSL these days. And it's actually really, really good. Now, I understand that this is a controversial opinion, but I think there are very few reasons, if any at all, to not use NixOS if you're gonna be using WSL. You obviously don't need the GUI programs and are almost exclusively going to interact with the shell, so it's only logical to have something reliable and reproducible like NixOS for that purpose. You don't need to worry about dependency conflicts. You can set up per project-based environments with the necessary development tools and libraries, and you can even use Nix to build your own programs. So if it despises something like CMake, you can just use Nix instead. But I also understand that it might sound a bit daunting to learn a new package manager and essentially a new way of thinking about things. But I think it's definitely worth trying, and I think you should at least give it a try. Now, installing NixOS on WSL is actually pretty simple. You just go to the WSL, the NixOS WSL module, or the Nix community on GitHub, and just go here, and it's a tar file that you can download, and you can use this one command to set it up. And it's literally just that simple. You just type this command, you download this file, and then type this command, and it takes maybe 5 minutes to set up the entire system, and you can just log in. This was actually simpler and faster to do than using one of the distributions from the Microsoft Store, like the Ubuntu WSL distro or any of those. And of course, if you're going to use NixOS, then it's only logical that you're also going to want to use Home Manager, because why wouldn't you? And if you have your dot files backed up to GitHub or your own Git instance, then you can just do a git clone, run Home Manager, and basically duplicate your original Linux system on this Windows machine. So you have your main Linux distro on Windows. And I think that's pretty cool. And honestly, I don't mind using Windows anymore. That's about it.